tell you a little bit about myself. I've been turning for about 10 years, and we're a member of the Central Ohio Woodturners, and this month the magazine on the insert is one of the Central Ohio Woodturners bowls with all the ornate painting and carving and so on and so forth. So I do bowls and a hollow form, and we were talking today when Bill was over there, over at Moe's, and dropped by, and we decided that I have never turned anything that was useful. You know, everything that I've turned has been some kind of a bowl, or he was talking about the Lazy Susan, like the one that's over there. So, but what I want to do tonight is to go through and do a hollow form. Do a hollow form, and it's an ingrain cherry. So it's, we were talking earlier about ingrain. And it's finished with beeswax and carnauba. It's also has a coat of walnut oil on it. So we can pass that around if you'd like and look at it, if you haven't already looked at it.
When do you put the walnut oil? What stage?
Put the walnut oil on first, and then you use the carnauba wax and beeswax mixed together.
There's 2 more chairs up here if somebody wants to.
One of the first things that I try to do is to select a piece of wood that has some interest, you know, either in grain or, depending on the piece, whether it has structural integrity or not. And then also the shape of the piece. You know, you need to decide what the shape is going to be. Most people have some idea of what they want to make, whether it's a bowl or it's a vessel or ornament, and then start turning. But one of the things that I early in my turning career was that I learned that I made some pretty ugly stuff. You know, you turn something and it just didn't look right. And what helped me the most on trying to make something that had reasonable appearance was that there's what they call the golden ratios, that things are supposed to have proportion. And since I carved, then that's how I learned about it, and I carried that over into the turning. And it makes a big difference in the way your bowls or vases or whatever looks. So you can go online and Google golden proportions and can come up all these things. So this is laid out that way. So one of the things is, since I'm glad to see that there are some young people here tonight that you're getting them involved in the club, because that's important that they can carry on through the process. Safety is probably one of there's some things that are right and wrong, and most things are related to style, and so there's not really any right and wrong. Your style is different than mine, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to safety, there are some things that are wrong if you do them wrong, and they talked a little bit about that tonight. So it's important to try to keep things safe. What I'm trying to do here is to get the general shape that I'm going to use tonight. And I've got some blanks so that we can jump from one stage. You don't have to sit here all evening and watch me try to make this the right shape. rough shape before I start hauling. I want to leave enough material in here to give it some strength, and then when I start hollowing, and then it gives me some reference to where I'm at in the piece. Okay, now it's got the kind of the general shape of the one that went around here. So we'll I started to have one here, and then after I started turning it, I found it had a slight problem with the crack in it. But even though it has a crack in it, one of the things that I like to do is carve things that are less than perfect or turn. So you can fill that with a 2-part epoxy, and it'll give the strength. And if the epoxy gets down in the crack well enough, then you can, it's just like a regular piece of wood. My wife taught me that.
You can lay the epoxy, it's not too hard for this.
No, it'll turn just like the wood. Down in this, how far do we want to hollow? And one of the things that I find that works well for me is to, with just a chuck and a drill press, and then a long bit, and then you can set whatever depth it is that you want to go down in there. That's a good idea. Then it's a rotating piece that's self-centered. Then if you wanted to, you could take a larger bit and go back through there and take out more of the material. There are probably more hollowing tools out there to use than there is days of the week or months of the year. But one of the best tools that works best for me, there are several, but one that I use probably the most is just a gouge. And with a gouge you can do a lot of good things with it. When you're cutting, you can cut it like this to get it started. And then when you're hollowing, you cut on the edge of the gouge. And then that gives you a reasonably clean cut, so when it comes time to sand, it's not quite so difficult. That is a problem with hollow forming or turning hollow forms, is that you have to work from the end, and there's always a good chance that it does want to move. So by having that hole in there, with a little luck we can hit that. It should come back pretty close. Tighten it up a little bit, get it back where it belongs. You guys on the front row probably are.
First line of defense.
Double check your insurance policy here.
You're right there, man.
You know, the one thing we might make is the Charlotte Club has a plexiglass shield
Yeah.
that they put in front of the lathe. Maybe we ought to make ourselves one of those. Just keep from mauling our Indy.
Well, it gives some protection to this stuff flying off. Heaven forbid if one gets loose. All right, let's try it again. If you got questions as we go through this way, don't hesitate to ask. Probably don't have an answer, but you're welcome to ask. If I don't, maybe somebody else in the club does.
I had a question about, you mentioned finishing. Do you do all your finishing on the lathe, or the last fit
I
you
do
off?
a lot of it on the lathe.
Like putting the wax, beeswax, would that be on the lathe, or?
Right. We'll cover that and move it. But yeah, it's a lot easier to do it here. There's several styles of gouges that you can use in the lathe. Bowl gouges. There's a 4-inch gouge, 3/8-inch gouge. Depending on the size of the piece, of course, the size of the gouge, but with the bigger gouge, once you're hollowing, it tends to take a lot of wood at once, and if you've got a long piece, it doesn't take much stress to draw down a line. Now we're starting to go into where that hole is. That centers up the gouge. And then we just bring the tool back around this way. And we'll rotate it slightly so that you keep the heel of the gouge and the cutting edge on the surface. And you come out with chips. If you're coming out with dust, you haven't got the position right. And straighten it. That's kind of straightening. This is cherry. It's a little cherry that we got from the sawmill, what, a year or so ago, and it's been sitting in our basement for that long drying. It's still, I think it had like 22% moisture, so it's still not quite totally dry, so it may distort when, if you were to go to a finished piece here.
How do you know how much moisture it is? How do you measure that?
I got a moisture meter that checks it. Well, that's the gouge. Another tool that, this is a crown tool that I modified, that I like to use also, is basically it was a skew, and then I cut off the rounded the edges. So I don't know whether they make one like this or not, but this is acts more like a scraper.
What do you call it?
It's a turning tool. I don't know. I don't really have a name for it. But it's this one you keep flat, and then you can. And there you see the scraping versus the cutting. And then you go back and use the gouge and do your cutting. This will take a lot of work real quick. Check to make sure we don't end up with rings instead of boa. We're that like so. So rather than go on to that process all the way down to get all that wood out. Questions on any of this?
Yes. On your modified ski scrape, did I see a slight negative break to the top of that? No, I did not. All right.
One of the things I use to clean out the inside of the straw and blow out the dust and dirt out of it. But since I don't have to sweep up when you're dumping on the floor here. the way I never told you, but the way I got into this with the wood turning is that my wife decided she wanted to take the class. So she'd gotten into woodwork early by her wanting me to make a shelf for the bathroom. So I told her I didn't have the right tools to do it with. And I finally convinced her I needed to go out and buy a radial arm saw, a planer, and joiner, and wood. So,
All projects deserve new tools.
so I got all of that, and a year or so later, she still hadn't got her shelf yet, so she went out and made it. And she enjoyed it so much that she decided to start taking some classes. So she decided she's going to take this turning class, and thought, well, I'll just tag along. And here we are. So it's all her fault. Okay, finishing a piece is, you know, you can have a beautiful shape, do a wonderful job of turning it, and finish is kind of an individual preference. If you're going to give it to yourself or put it on your shelf, why, you can use about any finish you want. If you're going to sell it to the public or whatever, they want shiny, glitzy kind of stuff, most of it. So if you want shiny, glitzy stuff, you sell it to the public. If you don't, you keep it yourself. But it's whatever you like. It's personal preference. Is that I like the waxes and the finishes on those. They're softer, the kinder, gentler approach, you know. So you finish the outside and the inside to clean up a little bit. In sanding, I start with about 80 and then go up to about 600 so that I get a reasonably smooth finish. And some types of wood may even go beyond 600. But
You sand the inside?
yeah.
What do you use for
That's a good question. What I use is these little sanding discs that Klingspor is what we got, right? Yeah. So she's looking at it like, that's my tool. But and then a drill extension. So what you can do is, that right there.
I've got a comb center if you want to put that on there.
Yeah, that might be good. It's supposed to be flat, but I didn't.
Is that one too small or that one more?
Is that the, you need to knock it out?
Is it a knockout or is it a screw off?
I don't remember.
Yeah, screw it back, it'll come out.
Probably have to knock it out.
Yep.
Too sharp on him. See, it's not hitting it.
Hey Dave, stick your rod down that way in front of it. There you go.
That?
Now back it out. No, just back it out if you wouldn't want to. It should work.
There you go. Leave it rolling.
There you go, them tricks.
Our resident machinist.
Oh, yeah?
Oh,
Well, big blade.
don't need that.
Or you can just, well, then you gotta watch it just doesn't hit the edge, it leaves a nasty mark. Whoops. Well, you can stand, and again, I start with 120 or 80 or 120, depending on how rough it is inside. And then go up to maybe a 400 or 320. Is there any questions on that so far? Totally confused?
What's the, what would you say is the minimum thickness you can do with a hardwood like that?
Well, if it has a good structural integrity, you could probably go an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. There's some out there that will go a lot thinner, but you run the risk of it shattering when you got it on the lathe. So anyway, we'll take and sand this down. Not gonna do a lot because the dust is different, but that's general principle going through, sanding it, make sure it's smooth, feel it, see if there's rough spots. And then there's the Turner finish, I use that. I use the crystal coat, whatever the mood strikes me. I think I like this one probably a little better. This one has solids in it that fill the grain, so it will fill it, make it a little smoother. And I use just beeswax and carnauba. It's 1/3, 2/3, 1/3 carnauba and 2/3 beeswax. And it's still pretty hard. Take a rag and buff it off. And put another coat on. And you can start to see the finishes coming out of it. So, And then after that's done, you cut it off. Everybody's got their own way of cutting off pieces. So, is there any questions of where we went with this?
What, the finish that you just put on, that's not going, if you already put it on the inside, would that make it waterproof?
Probably not. What I'm finishing the inside, I'll use a liquid, either this or the turner finish, or wipe on pop, and then put it on with the brush, turn it on, and throw it inside of the brush. And do that for 3 or 4 times.
I was wondering if I could feel to see the difference between.
Pardon?
I was wondering if I could feel the different size.
Come out and feel.
And that was what grade of sandpaper you were using?
This was just a 240.
But you go all the way to 600 usually.
Right. Other questions? Comments?
If you'd use walnut oil on that, how much darker would it make it?
Where's that other piece? That's got the walnut oil on it. Yes? Yeah. It doesn't really darken it at all. The cherry will turn dark naturally. You set it out in the sun, you got that there's a, okay, this one I made in '05, and this one I made in '06. The '06 is darker because I put an artificial finish on it. I used vinegar and steel wool, mix up with steel wool, let it set for a day, and then take the water and put on that, and that darkens it. And this is cherry, and this is cherry, but this piece of cherry doesn't have this finish on it. So you get the contrast, but they're compatible as far as color matches.
So you put the oil on first and then the wax, right?
Pardon?
You put the oil on first and then the wax?
Put the oil on and then let it dry.
Hello?
Then put the wax on. The oil doesn't have to be totally dry. You have to wait maybe a half hour, 45
Well,
minutes.
you know what, we're
But,
at a meeting right now, and I forgot to
And then
turn
you
my
put
phone off. Can you
beeswax
call me
and
back?
carnauba on.
Okay, okay. Can I
You have to
tell
put
them what
multiple coats on it, and the carnauba and beeswax,
Well,
generally every day, once a day, you put it on, nourish that, put it on. So it's kind of a long drawn out process. But with the finish, I personally like the finish better.
You don't use any of those newfangled tools, this crook pick and you scrape with them and all that, you use some of those?
Well, yeah, I do. You know, where I've got a more severe radius, like on those ornaments, where you have to get back in there on an edge. Then, you know, I'll use the gouge, do everything I can, then there'll be a little fat place here, and then I'll use the crooked tool to get in there, or just a straight one, scraper. Other questions? Anybody want to try it?
Every time I try, I throw it out and it goes around.
Thank you very much.